We hope you enjoy this episode of the Modern Arizona podcast. But first, an important message for our listeners.
Hello, this is Billie Tarascio, owner of Modern Law. We're a family law firm in Phoenix, Arizona, with offices throughout the state. We have attorneys who can help you with every aspect of your family law case. We also have a legal clinic run by students for those of you who need budget-friendly resources, and we have lawyers who've been practicing for more than 20 years. Collectively, Modern Law has more than 200 years of legal experience. So when you hire Modern Law, you're not just getting an attorney, you're getting a team. If you live in Arizona and need representation, call us today. That's 480-649-2905 or visit us at mymodernlaw.com. Hello and welcome to the Modern Arizona podcast. I'm your host, Billie Tarascio, Arizona family law attorney and owner of Modern Law. Today I am joined by Big Herc, aka Marcus Timmons, a youth advocate, an evangelist, just a community activist. Marcus, do you prefer Marcus or Big Herc?
People that know me call me Marcus family, but usually I just Big Herc.
All right, Big Herc. What can you tell us about your background and the work that you're currently doing?
My background, I'm been on social media now for about 11, 12 years. Grew up single mom, young, straight A student, good kid, skateboarding, BMXing, got caught up and got involved in some of the street stuff that kids do out of curiosity with lack of a father figure, male role model, and went through the juvenile system, been to California Youth Authority. So I was in the kind of like the young men detention environment where I was locked up, and then I did time in the feds for a bank robbery. I did almost 9 years off of 120 months. So I've seen every facet of the system, and I always think back like, what could I have done differently, or what influences that could have maybe shaped my life a little bit different, And I reflected on a lot of that. And while I was in prison, I came up with an idea to create a show called Fresh Out. And that show, I want to interview ex-felons, having them share their stories to hopefully help other young people that are making mistakes. And maybe if they saw this show, it would change lives. And in the process, I've been on Fox News. I've had advice documentary. I've had hundreds of kids, thousands across the world email me, and their parents have watched my show. It's helped a lot of people. And I just want to, give back. And that's my way of giving back, since I didn't have that really positive influence, even though I had people around me. But sometimes it's, hearing it from somebody else, it makes a difference.
Oh, absolutely. Right. As a 14-year-old boy, you don't really care what your mom says, right?
No, you're looking for somebody outside the household for advice.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm so glad that you're here on the show. Now you grew up in California, but you live here now, correct?
Yeah, I live in Gilbert, but I've lived all over California, Sacramento, went to school in the Bay Area, San Francisco, lived in Huntington Beach, went to school in Huntington. So I've lived all over California. I can pretty much tell you anything about up and down the coast of California.
Okay, so I want to get your opinion about what is happening right now in Gilbert. And I'm not sure how up to speed you are on the Gilbert Goons, or you are quite up to speed.
I've heard some things, and I was talking with somebody who was actually ex-law enforcement out here about that. And um my wife kind of like was on top of like all the news excerpts about the kids, and they were hiding one kid here, and this kid is doing this, and just the whole how it played out. And living out here is so relaxing. And I'm in Gilbert, I ride around on my bike, I don't have to look over my shoulder. There's goats, there's llamas, there's cows, there's horses. And I'm thinking like, why would you want to be a goon? I'm like, what makes a kid want to be a goon? So as I started like just reflecting, on these kids out here who are ultra privileged, who don't realize that this is such a great environment, and their parents pretty much can give them anything, a car when you're 16, you have access to going to the mall, gated community, all these different things. I'm thinking like these kids have replaced whatever positive access they have with trying to emulate this street this street kind of genre that they seen, thinking it's going to make them somebody, realizing that doesn't make you anybody. So when you call yourself a goon is somebody who preys on others and who is kind of like a wolf. They do it for survival, and they do it because they see other people as weak. And so a Gilbert Goon, you're saying that you're going to prey on somebody who you feel you can assert your authority over, or somebody you feel that you can somehow take advantage of. And in the process, what these kids out here are doing, they're attracting real goons. Because when you publicly say, like, I grew up in a neighborhood where they were shootouts, people were banging. And once people feel like, okay, this neighborhood is on the map, it's going to attract real gangsters or another neighborhood to come to your territory, like anything else, to kind of say, okay, well, you think you're this, we're going to come out and show you what this real street life is about. And they're lucky they haven't attracted some of these gangs from like Phoenix, Mesa, some of these really gang members. And these parents don't know what they're up against, because once this stuff comes to home and it comes to like nest in your backyard, and you got people coming up to, going by your house, shooting your house up, or your kid really catching something, it's a wake-up call. And they haven't had a wake-up call out here because they think it's all fun and games.
Right, right. Well, we've had a number of kind of big incidents. The first, of course, being the murder of Preston Lord. That was a big incident that, wasn't what the goons were attempting to do. They weren't attempting to murder someone, but they were engaged in behavior that led to murder. And then there's a completely different group of boys that were involved in, kind of good, clean fun that spiraled. And it led to them shooting fireworks and harassing their female classmates. And then on July 3rd, they burned down a barn, had 6 kids in it. Now the kids got out, but the barn burned to the ground. And now these kids are facing potentially, they're 15 years old, and those kids are facing potentially being tried as an adult for arson at 15. So it's like these kids are playing criminals.
But that's the parents, and when you beat somebody up with brass knuckles, I've never seen brass knuckles. I've seen nunchucks, I've seen knives, brass knuckles. And I guess that's what they beat that kid with. When you hit somebody with that, that's like hitting somebody with a bunch of rings on. You're trying to hurt, your brass knuckles is saying, when I hit you, I'm trying to crush something. So they want to hurt that kid. And I've seen the kid, I'm like, why?
Right.
Why would why would you? I've gotten in fights, but I never like said, oh, I'm gonna get some brass knuckles and put them on and punch. That's on some next level stuff. As far as, for one, that mentality to go get those and hit somebody. It's like getting, instead of fighting somebody, I'm gonna get a knife and I'm gonna stab. That's a whole nother level. When you talk about that type of interaction of violence, that's not shoot. That's a whole nother level. And then the parents that think, oh, it's not that. Oh, these kids are good kids. Look, there's little things that you have to curve real quick, or else it turns into something else. Which I've been around I've been around killers. I've been around guys who were never going home, 5 lives, 100 years. I've talked with murderers. I've interviewed guys who have killed I've interviewed a ex San Diego police officer who murdered his baby's mother and the kid in the house. I've talked to some real serious people. And there's little things like trigger points. And when you think about a person's journey, you start seeing the things they've done, it just escalates, unless there's something that turns them back to another path, or they have a point of reflection. And these kids, if the parents don't sit them down or somehow, you know, expose them to something that's going to make them really appreciate what they do have, these kids are going to get caught up in something. And once they get in the system, there's some real gangsters out there. And one thing for a white kid in the system,
Mhm.
white guys in the system have a different code. They're more structured than the blacks. The whites and the Mexicans have a certain way of doing things. And if you're a person, say, for instance, one of these little rich kids, Gilbert, your parents got money, you might be extorted. Tell your parents to send this much money, or you're getting visits all the time, bring the drugs in. There's things you're gonna have to do you don't want to do. And that's how they do it. Oh, you're getting visits every week. Oh man, who's that coming to see you? Your mom? Oh, okay, yeah, the homie seen you in there. Next time, pick this person up, bring them with you, or do this, do that. There's things that come with that. So it's not just going to do your time and mind your business. Unless you're somebody who's like really could stand on your own. But for a lot of those guys, especially the white car, and I'm just how it is, it's racial. I don't know about in Arizona, but I have interviewed guys who've done time in Arizona, and it's racial. You're gonna have to do certain things, and a good kid now might turn into something totally different in there because it's a whole nother animal. They don't think about that.
I do want to talk to you about that. You have experienced detention at every level.
Yes.
And, we as a community are watching our boys, our boys that could be my boys or the neighbor boys, like get sent to jail. And it feels very, and detention and juvenile detention, it feels very foreign. This is not a culture we grew up with. We don't get it. I'm talking about the moms, the millennial moms and dads. We're like, what? So, can you please tell my listeners, what is juvenile detention like?
Juvenile detention. I'm in Sacramento in the 80s. Gangbang Central. I mean, everybody in there is serious. There is no, you're talking about, for one, the mental capacity of a young man at 14, 15, 16 is not developed.
Right.
So the ability to rational certain decisions, whether it's something where the guy is playing a sexual game on somebody, or a guy made a rumor, or hey man, that guy got some tight pants on, I heard he's gay. What? Is that right? Or this guy, dude, they make up stuff and then you have to follow up. Soon as somebody says, hey man, you're gay. Oh, so-and-so said you're gay, man. You like tight pants, is that right? No, I don't like tight pants. Well, dude, you better right then. So if you don't go beat him up for saying that you're gay, now the other guy who told you that, oh man, I think he is gay. He keeps wearing those tight pants from the laundry, and he kind of does act kind of feminine. I wonder if he's been with a girl. Oh, maybe we should. And then that quick, that dude can get violated. Just a horrible
Mm,
situation in there. I mean, they're looking for weakness. When I was in there, first thing, I luckily I knew somebody that was in there, and they kind of, my reputation was a little bit kind of sound on the street through word of mouth. I also wasn't a smaller. I was kind of in shape because I worked out, and then I got to where I was going. And I was benching like 245, 250, and I was kind of athletic. And I knew a bunch of other dudes who were gang members in there, so I had kind of a presence. But if you're soft and somebody sees that you're not capable, and kids, these young boys play games like that, somebody can walk by and play a game and say, hey man, slap him on the ass, and playing around and see what you do. If you just, oh man, you let another man slap you on the ass. I seen a dude from there. That's a violation. If you don't go beat that kid up, that means that you're open for that type of activity. And then on top of it, you have certain individuals working there. Where I was at, it was a lot of college football players, and they didn't play around. If you were, acting up, doing certain things, you'd get checked. I seen a guy, beating on the door. I seen him get slammed, body slammed because he was out of pocket. I seen kids come in there normal and then, get to acting crazy and get on medication. And then they call it the Thorazine shuffle. These kids are never the same. They're like zombies because they've been medicated so much that when they get out now, they're literally not the same person. So there's a lot of things that can happen if you're not careful. If you get diagnosed as crazy, they're going to make you start taking pills. If you don't protect your manhood, you can get violated. If you act a certain way, if you start talking or hanging out with certain people, and these people are bad characters, and you get pulled into that, now you created friendships with people who aren't really good friends. So you have to be really careful who you sit down with, who you talk to, who you let read your, who you're open up to. People see vulnerability. Oh, you got a sister? Oh man, is that her picture? Where you live at? People might try to go to your house. There's a lot of weird shit. And if you're not a street dude and you're just in there and you're goofy and you don't understand, some of these people grew up in a system, group homes, foster care, maybe in and out, and they prey. And so if you're a square and you're coming in there and you don't know all these little ins and outs, odds and ends, who knows how you're going to come out? Then you'll pick up maybe some bad habits if you're not smart enough to not see these things. So there's a lot of things that play into that. And you can't cry for your mommy and daddy in there. You're in there, you're a ward of the state, and hopefully you make it out and you can do what you need to do. But it's just a whole nother environment. I remember sitting in there in school and the teacher asking some of these guys to read, and they couldn't even read like a book. Like I was already in, when I went in there when I was 15 and a half, I was in Spanish 2, I was in algebra 2 or trigonometry. I was a pretty smart kid. Some of these guys couldn't even read a basic book. And I'm looking like I'm dealing with this. I didn't even realize at the time, but I'm dealing with a very barbaric mentality. But these guys are big, they're gang members, they sell drugs. And I can't show that I'm a weakness to these guys, and I can't act like I'm overly smarter than these guys. So there's a lot of different elements going on. There's a lot of things. And then the people working there are grouping you with these other individuals. And then so you got to separate yourself that way. There's a lot of ways to play. I mean, but it's horrible. It's a horrible place, man. In juvenile, and usually people go from juvenile to YA. I went to both. I didn't want to go there, and I remember sitting in when I got busted, at 18 for accessory to a home invasion. I remember my grandfather came to visit me. He said, people who come in these systems, they just keep going. And I was like, I felt like shit. I'm like, damn, I'm sitting in here with all these other dudes. Some of these guys have been in here since they're 14, 15. They don't get out till they're 25. I'm in here with these guys. And I just kept going. I went from there to federal prison. And then it wasn't until I got to federal prison that I looked at my whole life as far as the choices I made and what I'd done and the people who try to reach out to me. And, hopefully you find it earlier, but, I got 10 years and then I started thinking about how did I get here? A lot of times you're not mature enough to figure that out when you're young to think about how you got here because you're not thinking like that. You're just living. A young man, you can't, you're not able to really reflect on your life probably till you get to your late 20s as a male. Women mature faster, but men, late 20s, they start really soaking in what their life's about.
Wow. So we hear that juvenile detention is for rehabilitation. That's the point. There's a lot of programs. They're there to help you. I didn't hear any of that from you.
Rehabilitation, I mean, I had a counselor in there. He wasn't a bad dude. And but you're not talking with these guys like that because it's not like you can't be seen hanging out with a counselor like your buddy. I mean, maybe they got, and I remember we went to trade school and I learned how to sew. And I also worked on a farm. I had to feed pigs. I had to bale hay. I had to drive a tractor. I did these different things, but it wasn't like I was looking at it like rehabilitation. I'm just trying to get the hell out because I want to get back to the high school because I left high school and was taken away for 8 months. And then I want to get back and, get me a girlfriend. I wasn't thinking about rehabilitation. So that's not really anything I was looking forward as an option while I was there. I was trying to survive. So when you start talking about rehabilitation, maybe if, the parents were more focused on, and even my mom, she was dating at the time and she ended up getting married. And so, there's family things I'm trying to cope with. And it's just a lot of stuff. So I don't know how that you can really rehabilitate. You get out, maybe you somehow, I don't know, you have a family member and you kind of, there's something that kind of triggers you to think about, I'm gonna stop all this. But I would say the most important factor is whoever your kids' friends are, if you don't know their friends, and if you're not paying attention, that's going to be their detriment. I realized when I moved from Sacramento to Huntington Beach, which was totally different, I needed at least 3, 4 more years in Huntington Beach of living to get all the bullshit out of me, because I went right back to the hood, and I hadn't had enough of that. And it wasn't until I reflected, like, man, I should have stayed my ass in Huntington Beach. I should have been a surfer. I could have been, I didn't understand it though. So you gotta really, your friends are more important than your family. Your kids' friends are so important. What they are doing, you know, what type of conversation being had at the house, what type of influence, because those people will influence your kids more than you know.
This is Billie Tarascio, owner of Win Without Law School and Modern Law. Win Without Law School is a program that operates nationally and helps people who are representing themselves or who just need more help. If you are in a family court case and you're feeling confused, you need direction, you need help figuring out questions to procedural or strategic issues, Win Without Law School can help. At Win Without Law School, you've got 2 experienced attorneys, me and my partner Julie LeBenz, who can guide you through the court process and help you troubleshoot your case. You've got access to courses, planners, checklists, and live Q&A. Our live Q&A is where you can get help from us and your community. We also have a closed Facebook group just for members where you all can share your experience, share your pleadings, get advice, and mentorship. Join us today at winwithoutlawschool.com. That's winwithoutlawschool.com. You said earlier, you said something like things are different for the whites versus the blacks and the Mexicans. And they have, I think that's what you said, and they have different kind of rules of engagement. Now, normally in society, we don't live like that. So that's a foreign concept. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Well, in California, they're the structure in the state prison. So blacks basically have their thing, and then depending on what part of the state you're in, you have the Bay, you have Northern California, you have the Crips, you have the Bloods, and in Hispanic, or the Mexicans, you have Norteño, you have Serrano, you have Border Brother, you have Paisa, you have these different cliques, and then the whites, you have the ABs, Nazi lowriders, and then you have others, people who kind of just do their own thing. That's in California state, very racial. So if I knew a white guy on the street and I see him in prison, no, we can't talk. He better not touch me. He better not give me nothing, share food. That's a death sentence. Guy walked by, the guy told me, he said he had a friend, he was mixed, white and black. He knew the guy from the street, the white guy, him hung out. He went over there, was hanging out with the black guys. The next time he was out with the white guys, they stabbed him while he was doing pull-ups. Stabbed him because he was hanging out. He talked to a white guy, being a black guy. You can't interact when you're on the street. That's what people think this, like, the racial stuff in prison is so serious, and then it permeates onto the street because these people bring a lot of those philosophies and beliefs. But luckily, I was in the feds, so my mentor was an old white guy, ex-Vietnam vet. So I was able to kind of be mentored by him. And because he was old and people thought he was crazy, I got a pass. But like, I remember there was a white guy on the yard and he seen me working out and he said, "Hey man, I see you always, you got a good workout." I said, "Yeah, man, thanks, man. Where are you from?" He said, "Orange County." I said, "Yeah, I used to live in Orange County." Oh, we started talking a little bit. By the time I got back to the unit, the cellmate I had was a black guy. He said, "Hey man, let me holler at you. I heard the homie told me you were talking to some white dude on the yard, some skinhead." I said, "What's up?" He said, "Man, ain't none of that. Ain't no talking to these white boys, man. None of that going on." So it's serious, man. There's no games in there. And for a white guy, if your paperwork's not right, if you got a charge that's something like they don't respect because they check paperwork more than the black card. But if it's like anything to do with kids, women, and certain things, you're getting booked, meaning that somebody's going to stick you. You better check in or you're getting stuck. Bring your paperwork. And that's in California. Have your paperwork together. It's not playing. Same thing with the Mexicans. They're very organized. Bring your paperwork. You better not be a snitch. You better not be this. I mean, I know it's changed a lot over the years, but it's a different structure. So for a white guy going in, he might not be racial, but he might come out racial because he's
Sure.
going to have to do certain things,
Sounds
and
like
it's,
that's required,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You have to be a racist in prison. It's required.
yeah. It's survival. I mean, you, for myself, my hardest thing was saying I'm only passing through. And so I was able to kick it with, like, not kick it, but talk to an Italian guy or talk to this guy who's, Korean, or this guy. So I networked a little bit more, and I was able to kind of, like, because I helped a lot of people with legal stuff. So I kind of had a pass. I was like an educator. But for the average person, they have no interaction with any other races but their own in there. And if you had, any type of like dislike in there, it becomes enhanced because of what you're seeing. Maybe a white guard saying something to you, or a black guard, or this or that. It's just a horrible mental place. And if you don't keep your mind right, you get out and you have a certain, you look at people differently.
What brought you to Gilbert?
Getting the hell out of California. I came here to visit, and I seen how nice the people were. People say hi, they wave at you, you know, just the courtesy. And during COVID, it wasn't locked down. I'm looking like, man, this is normal out here. This is crazy, man. Like how they, want you to believe like all this stuff is like going on across the country, but it's not. And then I started realizing that a lot of the people I thought I was cool with, we have totally different views on stuff. Like all this stuff become very polarizing. Like I've never had these conversations. And then people, I'm like, hold on, man. I'm not down with this. I'm not down with this. I don't agree with this. And so I'm like, I think I need to get up out of here. And I brought my wife here to visit. She liked it. And just like the atmosphere is, this the state of mind is, it's not like you're in the rat race as much as LA, and people seem like more who they are. LA is very pretentious. People, a lot of times people having a hidden agenda. And I grew up in California. I never really paid attention to it until all this stuff happened. And I never even thought about coming to, Arizona. I've been here for the Barrett Jackson, but Gilbert, I'm like, I wouldn't want it too hot. But then I came out here, I'm like, it's worth it to trade off for the heat during the summer. And just because the California, it's just that state, they just ruined it. It's turned into just a garbage hole.
Hmm. So you moved here 3 years ago?
Going on 4 years now.
4 years ago. Okay. And I know you have this social media presence and social media show. Is that your full-time job?
Social media, we did a fundraiser last week in Orange County. We do a thing where we do like almost like a pay it forward, where we help out like a mom pop restaurant, and we donate so much, and then we ask people to donate to our ministry because we have a nonprofit, so that we can keep mom pop businesses going. So we've been working on that. And then I also have like merchandise and stuff. I got apparel stuff I sell, and I mentor people too. So I kind of got multiple things going on, and I'm an
Okay.
artist.
Okay. All right. So what's your primary goal or primary mission? I mean, I know you all want to have a bigger presence here in Gilbert and in the East Valley. Who should be contacting you? What should they be looking to you for?
Well, they can come all over social media. So I have like Big Herc 916.com. People can hit me up for like mentoring, speaking engagements. Um, on the side, I'm working. I got a script I'm working on getting sold. I got a documentary I'm working on, where we're kind of doing like a modern version, not Scared Straight, but something where we kind of mentor young people to kind of see how we can reach those people at that turning point, 14, 15, 16. So I'm working on that documentary also. And then I'm really into cars. So I always tell kids and young people to find a passion or something you're into. So, I'm really into pushing the trades. Some of these kids, need to get into something working with their hands, or get into the arts, or get into something that gives you a purpose outside of just a like and a follow. Everybody's caught
Hmm.
up on like and follow attention. You got to do something that kind of gets your mind out of this social media state and creating your own identity. And a lot of kids have no identity, therefore they try to emulate somebody else, not knowing that that's not who they are.
Right. So are the pieces of art behind you, is that your art?
Yeah, a lot of that's my stuff. Like I draw, I paint. Um, yeah, I've been doing it since I was a kid, and it wasn't until I came out here to Arizona that in this new place we're at that I actually got to like unleash that again because I hadn't been able to tap into that. And I think that's just one of the, it's one of the blessings of being out here. But a lot of people, they don't realize that we're all unique in our own way. And if you weren't unique, then there would be no reason for you to be alive. There's a reason why you're still breathing. You're doing something. You have a purpose, and until you find that purpose, a lot of times you're just existing. So I always say, man, figure out what your purpose is. And if you have the time to like explore different things or different interests, you never know what you'll come up on because like a lot of people don't. They're so caught up on life and just this negative energy. And the whole thing is basically about dividing us. They don't want us talking. They don't, as far as in general, as far as communicating. And, when I've seen in prison how they keep everybody so separated, I'm like, man, that's the same thing. They take that model and they put it into a program or algorithm on the street, and people are the same thing. So you have people that walk by each other and don't even look at each other or acknowledge each other. And, I grew up where, if you lived in a community, you knew your neighbor, you had barbecues, you had, sleepovers. And I don't know, I just like that value. And I think we need to kind of get back to that.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. It does seem like the community is fractured, although I still think Gilbert is a pretty special community.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, Gilbert, the vibe out here when I go to the grocery store, the people way, everybody's really friendly. It's totally different than what I got in California. I mean, and unless you go like Orange County is a little bit different, Huntington, Newport Beach, but it's very fragmented. And I remember when people told me when I was moving to Arizona, like, man, Arizona, you better watch out. I'm like, what do you mean? Man, they, people out there, man, this and that. It's a lot of like preconceived notions about Arizona and if you're black. It's
Oh,
straight,
yeah, sure.
So, when I came out here, I was like, dude, I haven't had no problems. You know what I mean? I haven't got pulled over for driving black in Gilbert or, being black at a car show or, I haven't felt any sense of racism. So, I mean, I think a lot of it's in your head and then people, they project something so they assume that it's going to happen. But since I've been out here, I've met some great people, and I'm not from here, so it's a little bit different. I don't know anybody here, but I enjoy living out here compared to where I was living at before.
Makes me so happy to hear that you have not um, experienced racism here. That makes me so happy. And I think it will make a lot of people so happy because you never really know as a white person how much racism really exists. You never know. And I don't feel like we'll really ever truly know because people experience it so differently. But I'm really happy to hear that your experience has been positive and that there is still a lot of really great things here. And yes, we have a little bit of a problem with our youth. And so, what would you say are the key things that parents can do besides we got to know their friends? But what else can we do to protect this community?
Um, Keep your kids in activities. I don't care if it's summer basketball, summer skating, swimming, go stay with your cousins in Montana, keep them busy so that they don't have an idle mind. When you sit around, you're idle and you're around kids, they're not doing nothing, they're just sitting around, they start plotting and planning and thinking about what they can get into. If you have all these activities and you have things going on and you're meeting interesting people, you got a cool coach, you got a cool instructor over here at this science camp or whatever, over here you're meeting this person, it keeps you out the way and, makes you want to, continue to be involved in something because you have a sense of accomplishment when you're doing these things, playing sports or, building stuff or art school, whatever. But keep your kids busy. Don't allow your kids to sit around and do nothing. Get them out the house, have them to the point where they're exhausted, where they don't have time to go out here and want to burn down a barn or, beat somebody up. They're like, nah, dude, I got to get up in the morning and go do this. And then I got to hang out with my dad this weekend. We're working on a car. Or, you want to make sure kids have enough on their plate. So they're active, and the people that they look at that and are like, that's not a good look for me. I'll pass on that. And so they kind of distance themselves, and then they'll start seeing the bigger picture. But you got to do it in a way where they don't even know what you're doing, but they're doing it, and it kind of keeps them off balance. You don't ever want them to get comfortable and what they're, hey, get up today. We're doing, what do you mean? I thought I was, no, we're going over here to pay. What? We're going to pay. Oh my God. We're going quad running. We're going over here doing this. And they're just like, oh man, but that's how you gotta keep them going.
Good advice. Very, very good advice. Do you have children?
I have no kids, but I grew up, I have four brothers, two brothers, two sisters, and my mom did daycare. So I was always around kids.
Lots of kid experience.
Yeah, a lot of kids experience.
Well, Big Herc, thanks for coming on the show, and it was great meeting you. And welcome to Gilbert. I'm so happy that you're here. And where can people find you online?
They can find me at bigherc916.com or Big Herc, the YouTube channel, or Big Herc 916, the YouTube channel, or Fresh Out, the YouTube channel, or freshoutseries.com. So we're pretty big on the internet. A lot of positive stuff, a lot of stuff where people, kids watch these videos, they'll think twice about trying to be the man or going to prison.
Yeah, it's real life, right? I mean, I've seen some of your stuff. You have millions and millions of followers. You have great guests, and you tell the truth. You tell real stories about what is it really like. So maybe would you mind sharing a story, maybe one of the most popular ones from your shows?
Um, well, I've interviewed so many people. I mean,
Mhm.
I would say, like, I just interviewed my buddy who was white guy, big dude, about 6'6". He was a big wig in a motorcycle club, and he did like 9 years, been in and out the system, but good dude. He was on Sons of Anarchy. He was a musician. He's now doing he's looking to do mentoring, but he's also like doing some acting stuff. But we were able to maintain a friendship. I met this guy in 2000, and he was locked up in LA MDC. And I remember this guy when he was going to court. Like I said, he's a bigwig in the club, and when he was dealing with his situation, they had a rally of bikers, and there was probably over 100 motorcycles riding around the facility, and they were riding around, and it was like the whole downtown was crazy. At Harley Davidson, like these guys, OGs, not this OG biker club. I don't want to say his club, but I remember the prosecutor was like, if you don't get these guys out of here, I'm saying this obstruction of justice, blah, blah, blah. And so, he made one quick phone call and everybody took off. But me and him was like, we stayed cool. And these are some of the people I encountered that are like serious dudes. But because the way I carried myself, and one of the things that helped me growing up was I grew up on a military base in the middle of the Bay Bridge in the Bay Area called Treasure Island. And so I was around a lot of military kids. So I always had a mixture of friends, Filipino, white, Mexican, Hawaiian, I mean, you name it. And so for me, communicating with people was a lot easier, different nationalities. I could always find something in common. A lot of people, it was amazing. I would be around certain guys in prison, and they had never talked to a white person on the street. Never seen a Mexican on the street. That's how we're in America, but you don't realize a guy from Baltimore, he's like, man, you ever dated a Mexican girl? I'm like, yeah. He said, what about a white girl? I'm like, yeah. He's like, what? Really? Oh, man, that's crazy, man. He's like, dude, it's like, and I'm looking at these guys like, dude, you never talked to a Mexican person. But that's how like diverse, what do you want to call it, America. So it's not like what everybody thinks. So you go to certain places, some of these people have never talked to a black person. Wow. So for me, when I start talking to people, they're like, dude, where are you from? Who how'd you grow up? I mean, it's like trip out, but I think that's one of my assets, and I try to use it to my advantage. But a lot of people, they've never interacted like that. I've seen like, certain white guys, Italian guys, they don't even want to deal with, like, I don't really deal with blacks, man, because of blah, blah, blah. Then they're like, but man, the way you carry yourself is different. Herc, man, blah, blah, blah. I could tell so people notice. So, these little things you instill in your kids, mannerism, the ability to be courteous, they go a long ways, and you can't take them lightly. But a lot of these things aren't being taught at home, and these kids are getting in trouble, and they're not able to recognize good character. And these are things that we got to teach our kids. Just because you put a roof over their head, you give them clothing and college education, you need to teach them some life skills.
Mm-hmm.
Life skills, communicating with people,
breaking down racial barriers, uniting people.
Yeah. And real life, not everybody's the same. I'm just gonna keep it 100. There's certain people that look like me, I wouldn't have nothing to do with. I'm cool. You know what I mean? Just like, it's like, oh, that's considered so and so trash. Well, there's trash in every community. Every community has trash. You know what I mean? Not everybody, and it's just a mental thing. Certain people, you talk to, you're like, dude, this dude's crazy. I'm cool. You got to realize that not everybody's your friend. Not everybody's here to help you. Just because they look like, don't think that that's something that's going to benefit you. You got to look at, like, is this somebody I would really want to spend my time with? You gotta look at the whole situation. A lot of people don't do that because they're afraid, and they want to fit in, and they don't want to be ostracized. And, these are things you're going to have to go through to find your identity.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your experiences and educating all of us. I really appreciate it. And we will talk to you soon. If you all have enjoyed this episode, make sure to like it, download it, share it with your friends. And if you want more from Big Herc, you can find him online. Thanks so much for listening to the Modern Arizona podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, make sure to download it, like it, leave a review, and share it with your friends. If you know someone who would be a good guest, or you would like to be on the Modern Arizona podcast, make sure to give us an email or reach out to us at mymodernlaw.com.